ready to go.
Watch that horse. Boy, this could be fast. Can he heel it? He does. Perfect timing to do it again tonight.
Hey guys, Patrick Smith here with my friends Miles Baker and Matt Sherwood, and we're here with roping.com and the Team Roping Journal. We're just going to discuss a little bit about the NFR steers and what we expect this week. We're here right before round one. And I know this year the steers are smaller than they have been in the past. I know when we got them in from Bobby Joe, brought them over to Driggers. Caleb was Driggers, he was actually really excited. He thought this would maybe be the best set that he's ever roped here. It's been a few years for me. There was one other year that we roped, Trevor and I, when we were roping together, roped a really small set of steers. And it made a pretty good NFR, really. Towards the end, they got a little bit slower and kind of gave it up. But last year, the steers were huge here. Last year I was here in 2015. The steers were really, really big, and it just makes a big difference in the whole feel and the whole setup. At home, it looks so much different, or even in the stands, it looks so much different when you're up there versus when you're down in that arena. But a bigger, longer strided steer, even though it looks like they're not moving, it's no different than a horse. They're covering ground, and for a heeler especially, when you're trying to get in time with the jumps, the bigger they are and the longer it takes those headers to break them down and open them up, things like that. Where these smaller ones, I feel like these guys this week are going to be able to get a hold of their heads, open them up quicker. T. Woolman, another great, he seemed to think that these steers might give it up a little more than some of the other ones towards the end of the week. I don't know about that. They seemed like they were pretty strong yesterday, but I liked them a lot.
So the year you and Trevor won it, roping the smaller ones, I remember he rode a younger horse that was a little greener at the time, and he was pretty strategic about doing that because he felt like his older horses were going to get too strong on them steers or maybe move them and hit them too hard. So what do you expect to see with these cattle? Because that worked. And I remember, Matt, you rode that horse later on, and at the time when he was young, I remember like it was just tight and he could control it and step them up and come back at just the right time to keep their heads, and it looked picture perfect then. Do you think this is the same type of cattle, or are they going to hit faster?
No, I do think they're going to hit faster. Definitely they're going to hit faster than those bigger ones. But for the people in the audience, all the armchair quarterbacks out there, which I've been one myself for the past few years, but what guys don't realize what makes this building so hard for a heeler and or for a header, but for a heeler especially, is you can't outrun a head rope, right? So these guys are throwing so fast. My partner, Tanner Tomlinson, is one of those guys that, I mean, he can come over the chutes and throw as quickly as they're allowed to do it. But I can't get the go that I need without over-hazing the steer or stepping him too much. And a left-leaded steer in this building is not where the money's won. I'm not saying you can't win a little bit and you can't make a good run on that, but ideally, almost a little right pattern or definitely dead straight down the arena. That's where your 3-second runs and stuff like that happen, where it finishes better. Those head horses don't get hung up in the wall. So the dilemma is for the heelers to see enough to make sure that they can let that steer get out and hopefully not on his own go to the left. And if he does, a header's going to have to do a good enough job of getting it on him and taking the time of breaking him down without killing the runoff to let a heeler get around there and crawl around the end of it where he can heel one. But ideally is let him start enough that a header can get his go and a heeler can go with him, and when he reaches, he has time to set it up in the middle of the arena. And to me, that's where a smaller steer makes for better watching, because they can control them a little bit longer and hold them there a little bit longer without those big soggy steers getting on the end of it and they get so dead, and then the head horse has to almost start over to try to pull the momentum of those bigger steers.
Got all the weight out on the end of it pulling on him.
Where I think with these steers, stuff's going to be a little snappier, and they can, anytime the header wants to, he can kind of dictate what that steer does, and I think that's what's going to make it a little better watching.
One thing you noticed last year, if you watched it, is those steers were so big, a lot of headers would get it on them and turn them, and then they would get their head back. They were so big, and so a heeler would come up and think he would have a shot, and that steer's butt would get hidden, so they would get a right leg. And I don't think you're going to see that this year. And another thing that it seems like on those bigger steers, when a heeler takes one extra swing, a lot of times, man, that takes a long time. Those hops are so big, where today, we talked about it, these steers are hopping fast, and one extra swing sometimes is not going to take very much time because they're hopping so fast.
They are. And so the other day, when Tanner was trying to decide which horse he was going to ride out here, he and I both were on the phone with Trevor, and Trevor made it really simple for him. He said, look, if you made an imaginary line across the arena once you turn the steer, as long as when you hit that steer, even if his hips go down the arena a little further than you want, If that imaginary line is drawn straight across the arena, as long as you don't let his head get on the right side of that line, back towards the strip and shoot, as long as you keep his head on the left side coming back, Trevor came this close to saying something nice about me. It was so he had the greatest opportunity because he said, you pull him, I thought he was going to be like, then Pat, he said, you give him 2 good jumps. And I'm like, oh, he's going to say, then Patrick's going to have him shut down. He goes, well, then it's off your shoulders. It's on Patrick then. Yeah, and he managed to just completely pull away from a compliment on me. Thanks for that, Trevor.
Yeah. Started into one and went away from
it.
it.
It's pretty impressive how he got skated around it. But he is right. These guys, once they've switched the steer, the most important thing at that point, even if they hit them too hard, is to not let their heads go back. Because when a steer's head goes back, what so many people don't understand, it cuts the jump literally in half. So heelers in time, no different than jump rope with the steer, and their stride and opening that steer up is where we're going to place our rope and finish the run. And when you lose their head, they'll go from this angle where they're going to hit and open to where they'll go this way and their feet will hit halfway through their stride and they'll stab and guys will get out of time, miss the cow, or heel them and lose them because the steer is going to change directions and the rope will come off. But I think that's where being a little bit smaller steer is going to make it for better watching this week. Again, I've learned not to make too many predictions in team roping world. I know how that usually turns out.
So who do you feel like is on the head that's like we're talking about with smaller steers, horses are going to let them hold them up just a second? Who do you think's got a horse that's standing out?
Man, well, of course I'm going to be biased, but I'm leaning on my partner just for the way that he's been lately. It's his first NFR, but he's doing a phenomenal job. He's riding Coy Rallman's horse. Blue that he rode, Coy rode here last year. Horse was perfect in this building.
He did look amazing. Tanner was riding a bay that Trevor rode out here a lot. He called him Wishbone, and he was kind of trying him back and forth. And it was, obviously we love to see a horse with the brand out here, but that horse looks so good. It seemed like those were more, the steers were bigger and they were dead. But it was just fluid, and he finished amazing in the wall. I thought, that's what I told Trevor. I was like, golly, that horse fits him great.
Well, and on the flip side of that, Wishbone, the 2 weeks before the NFR, comes down with an illness. He's running a fever, so Tanner didn't get to spend any time getting used to him. He had the blue horse for a month, the roan horse, so that's something that made a difference just on feel and on confidence. But it does fit him really well. Obviously, you're not going to argue with what Caleb Driggers and Jr. coming in the year that they've had. Everybody's saying, can they be caught? Can they do this? And to even think about that or consider it, that's what I told Tanner the other day. I'm like, hey, at least for your first NFR, a little bit of that pressure, you almost have nothing to lose. There's not a gold buckle in the balance right here or anything. We need to go get our feet wet, make good runs, and see where we end up. But those guys are not going to have a shutout. Driggers knows what he's doing. He knows how to handle a steer.
So
Junior's going to be Junior.
Is Driggers riding the same horse he rode last year?
He had the bay here that he rode in the breakthrough, and I think he'll start on him and stay with him. To me, the sorrel that he got on, Driggers is amazing, but the sorrel didn't look near as good as
that horse he rode last year. I thought it maybe the first round, I questioned if he was going to be strong enough, and he has a real forgiving style. And I remember Trevor and I talked about it, and I was like, man, I don't know if that horse is gritty enough, physical enough. And then, golly, by the third or fourth round, I was like, that horse looks like the best mount right now. But that horse looks like he'll be great on these steers too. I haven't seen him go, but the way he worked last year, he was always around his left leg. And what I mean by that is, both of these guys can vouch, if a head horse is coming back under your left leg and getting strong and his stride gets long, he's taking that steer with him stride for stride. So if you have something that can keep their stride tight and keep moving up around your left leg through the corner, that steer's going to kind of mimic that same thing, and that horse looks like he'll do good with smaller steers.
That horse does amazing if he wants Driggers. That horse does amazing if he wants to go, but as Driggers is roping, he lets him just hold, and then that horse will go, or he'll just let him hold him right there and go. And I think you're right, that horse isn't super strong, so he never takes those steers away. He's just strong enough to keep him moving. If you watch him, I don't think that horse finishes good enough, but he does an amazing job of just softening those steers and finishing, and they're faster than you think they're going to be every time.
I was a fan of him by the end of it last year.
Yeah. Well, another thing, smaller steers, if they do start to give it up at all, another thing that can become a problem is when steers start wanting to get over there to the left. Yep. And the heeler's trying to stay back, make sure he doesn't overhaze. Steer steps over to the left, you're automatically in a bind, but that's something to watch for this week too. Nobody wants to have the steer that heads over to the wall. I mean, just puts you in a bind. But having a horse that will come back up that wall, keep a steer's head, and finish into the wall is something that's going to come into play too. And it always does at the NFR, but especially when you get into some steers that may get a little bit slower through the end of the week. But I could go through all 15 teams, and not to sound corny by saying this, but it really is. Confidence means so much. And the guys that get tapped off, sometimes it's the people you least expect. Sometimes it's the people, the Clay Smith, Clay Trines, the guys that have been here so many times and done well. They kick it off, and it just, the confidence factor in this building is unbelievable. Yeah. Somebody can have one of those bad steers, hits fast, comes left, makes a bad run, and then you're out there outside swinging every different colored rope, reinventing the wheel, you know, asking the driver's wife or somebody else what they think you need to do different, you know. And so, you know, you'll know by about round 3 or 4 kind of who's got their game tapped off and who's doing some horse changes, things like that. But I expect to see several teams have a really good week.
Patrick, one time when I was here, I had a guy, it was after the breakthrough, and he made the comment, he said, that guy scares me all year long, but he doesn't scare me at the NFR. And when we watch those guys break through, a lot of guys have got, you know, team roping's got so fast, and guys get where they throw so fast. And so you notice sometimes guys are throwing so fast that they don't give themselves anywhere to go, to where some of the best runs are just one stride further down the arena, and then they finish so much better. Do you feel like for guys to win a world championship, some of the most talented guys, that they need to change how they rope in this building to be more successful here than they have been?
Oh man, absolutely. I think that, you know, going back to Trevor, he was one of the best in this building because Trevor wasn't a reacher. He used his horse, he set the run up. He used to talk about calf ropers cutting their ropes shorter, and he always said, you can only do that so much. I don't care how quick you are, how fast-footed you are. If you get down the rope and it's too short, there's a timing to the run. And it's the same way in team roping. First of all, the panels on this arena, they curve out, and if you head the steer the minute his head clears the chute or when he's first legal, when the neck rope comes off and your horse button hooks, you can't go anywhere anyway. So even if you make the run, you don't get the finish. You end up being 5-2 instead of 3-5, you know what I mean? So that's what I've told Tanner this whole time. Me being the older guy, him never being here, he's been super teachable. And I've told him, look, what wins out here is fast runs, but it's runs in control where there's not a lot of rope out. I said, if you will head the steer fast, and if you will make it where I can keep my distance, fast heading, control, and a heeler with distance equals a good week. A header getting a lot of rope out and a heeler getting tight makes a really long week, and I have rode both sides of that roller coaster, I promise you. So I think what you're saying is, yes, letting the run develop a little bit. Sometimes we run over ourselves just like a calf rope or anybody else, trying to make it happen so fast. And you get caught up, maybe the first couple teams are 4 flat, 3-9, whatever it is. And you start trying to do things and don't realize that really some of the best 3-second runs were completely under control and out in the middle of the arena. You just let it develop. So there is definitely a timing there to where sometimes you can throw too fast in this building and get yourself in a spot where you won't be fast.
While we're on the topic, I know everybody's chomping at the bit to watch Lightning head out here, and it's crazy how fast he can get them. But I'm curious to see, he can get them so fast that, like you were saying, he could get himself in a bind over there, and that's a big horse. And I've heard people say that big horses like that aren't good, aren't good in this setup because their stride, they can get to the wall so fast. But it's hard to bet against it when you watch it. But the video going crazy on Facebook right now is him one swinging one. And do you think that's going to work good, or do you think he's going to have to go one more swing and go with the cow just a little bit? Or
Man, so I buddied with Lightning this year. So my buddy team, we had Tanner Thomas and Lightning.
Your rig goes really fast.
Our rig goes fast. It was all or nothing, you know, and Colby Payne was healing for Lightning. But I got to watch it all year. Lightning's come so far. He lived in my place here a few years ago, and the difference of him from back when he was staying there shoeing horses to today, and that horse, what a difference it's made for him. Yep. That is a big horse, but man, that son of a gun moves his feet. Yep. Tanner borrowed him at Calgary this year and a few other places, and every time he borrowed him, it was like stealing for him. It was so easy for him to do what he did in short setup. So I think you are going to see Lightning do some amazing things. I do think it's live by the sword, die by the sword type deal, but they also came and practiced with us a lot. And I would tell Tanner, hey, and Tanner can do the one swing too. And I'm like, I'm never going to go against anything you want to do. If that's where you're most comfortable, just remember the run is in the middle.
Yep.
And as long as the run's in the middle, if you're throwing so fast that you have to get away from the steer right back into that corner,
yep.
That's the only thing where a guy like Lightning throwing as fast as he can. But he's smart. He's going to see right off the bat what he needs to do once he gets a feel. I do expect him to.
Trevor and I talked about that quite a bit, and the way he explained it was, he said if you're sitting in that box and you leave the box and never go to the cow, you'll have this angle so the camera can see, leaving the box coming here, and by the time you get hooked up to the cow, you have nowhere to go over here. And so he was saying it's okay to head them fast, but you've got to take your first strides to the cow. So instead of hooking up to the cow at this angle, you're hooking up at this angle, and you can go up one stride. Like you said earlier, let your heeler get up there, get caught up, and be waiting, as opposed to, he said, out here, it's the kiss of death already.
Yeah. Well, once you get this angle right here, like you're talking about, then all the header can do is come straight back up the wall. Well,
Yep.
all that does
To
is
not give
continue
him the
to
head
send
back.
the hips of the steer down the arena. It's going to get a heeler caught inside, see right legs or not even be able to throw over there against the wall. So that goes back to what I'm saying about the timing and the importance of heading the steer fast is great, but you got to do it going towards the cow, just like Trevor said. Short ropes and fast ropes are what are going to win out here. That's what makes it where a heeler can stay outside, see a shot, and not cover the cow up and try to pull stuff off.
I did think that gray horse looked, when on the one swing video, it's hard to tell when they're breaking the steers in, because like we talked about earlier, a lot of guys are doing it a little different, getting their horses ready, but that horse fired and run straight to the cow. And that's what wouldn't scare me about how fast he throws, is it looked like that horse wasn't leaving trying to beat him, like he was with him. And he has to be. For the guys to have a horse that rope like him and Tanner do, they have to have a horse that's pretty dang honest.
Well, and Lightning can do that. I mean, I've seen it. He can do the one swing 10 out of 10. So
Yeah.
can't be mad at him if he one swings and misses one, because his shot's just as good there.
Just don't expect you to do it.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to head until they take away the rule where you can't head him before the neck rope breaks. You know me.
Yeah.
So what about this? And if you go back and watch years and years of NFRs, two things. One, there's rounds that 4-2 doesn't place, and there's rounds that 4-2 win first place. Yeah. And it's not because, well, the steers are way worse this round or steers are way better this round. It's just some rounds guys get to going too fast. But it seems to me like if you go back and thinking about the world champions for the last 20 years, since I've been following it, the guys who go 4-2 to 4-6, that's not a super hard run in this building. 4-3 or 4 is not a hard run, but the guys that consistently just go make their run, and I think you and Trevor were a great example of that. Driggers last year. If you go back and look, those are the guys at the end of the 10 nights that win a world championships. It's not the guys that go 3-5, 3-5, no time. So I think guys, if they set themselves up just making their run, and then some nights they're going to win really good money in the round because some rounds get easy, and some nights they might not place or win 6th place. But I think whoever we see just making good aggressive runs like we're talking about, at the end of the week, that's going to be who wins a world championship, not who wins 2 or 3 go rounds with a lot of no times.
Well, like Joe Beaver was talking to me the other day, and he was saying what's hard to remember is with this new payout, 4th is good money. It wasn't very long ago the go rounds paid $15,000. Now, I mean, they're paying almost $29,000. So 4th place check, a 3rd place check, and that goes back to the confidence thing we were talking about too. When you're going out there every night and being 4-2, 4-3, 4-4, and leaving there with 4th place, 5th place, 3rd place, maybe sneak in there and get a win or a second, your whole demeanor of Las Vegas is different. Everything about it. You can't wait to get back in there versus when you are, even if you're 3-5 on round 1 and win the round and you think you're going to set the world on fire and you come back with 2 no times, man, the whole outlook of it's different. You're trying to change everything and reinvent the wheel. And now you've backed yourself into a corner where, well, we might as well try to be 3-5 every night. Where when you keep your horses sharp and working like what Matt's saying, that's what you've done here before, making that run, going towards the cow, setting it up. When it works, it works. If it's tough and you win 6th, you win 6th. The next night you win 3rd. We're catching cows, and man, catching cows here is important.
It's amazing how much harder it is. 0.7 of a second is not that much, but it's amazing. I mean, there's been 12 runs, 15 runs that were 3.5 or faster ever. It's amazing how hard it is to be 3.5. 10 guys a night trying to do it, where 4.2 is not a super hard run. If that's what's in your mind, we're just going to go make a good run. And like you said, then it gets pretty easy to do.
Andrew and Buddy last year, they proved that. I mean, they stuck to their game plan no matter what and won a pile of money just from making their run. Whatever the steer gave them, that's what they did. So, you know, me and my partner, that's something we've talked about a lot. Again, him going to his first NFR, I've been real careful not to try to take the
Fun out of it.
Yeah, the Superman out of what he's so good at. What he's the guy that's prepared for the NFR his whole life. I said, you were ready for this way before you were ready to do the other rodeos to get here. Right. So don't take that away, because that is his high percentage shot, is throwing fast. But mentally slow down. You just have to, you know, him at 80% out here would be a fun week for me. I would just need to do my job. So I look forward to that. But I think you're going to see a lot of those guys. Tyler Wade, man, has grown so much in this game and learned to handle steers. You've got your veterans, Clay Trine, Clay Smith. Clay Smith is always deadly here. He does a lot of what you talked about with Trevor. Uses his horse, sets up the run, does whatever the steer gives him, and, you know, earned his spot this year with a broke leg. So
he deserves to do good.
He deserves, and he will do good. So I think it's going to be a fun week with Team Open, in my opinion.
Swapping to the heeling, what do you think with these steers? Do you think there's, like Joseph, for an example, the governor, the sorrel, he's pretty tight, but he can get them really fast. The Bay, it's got a little more stride to him, more forgiving, but like we talked about, if he's 4.2 on the governor, he's probably 4.5 on the Bay. Right. The Bay's not as tight, he don't finish as fast. I assume he'll start on the sorrel, but like, what's that look like for everybody? Are they changing hill horses, or?
I feel like if you watch, the guys who header do a good job, the heelers are going to look really good. Yep. The guys headers that don't, you know, get in a hurry or do things wrong, it's going to make the heelers look bad.
There is no doubt. I mean, I don't want to sit here and already be blaming the headers for this week, even though that's part of my job. Yeah. But it is. The headers dictate so much of how a heeler gets tapped off and what they do. I brought 2 horses out here. I got Turbo and I got Rooster. It's probably the best 2 as a pair that I've ever had. I mean, I had Amigo, which to me was the greatest heel horse I've ever had. But both of them leading up to this have felt so good. Turbo's a little quicker off the line. Rooster's solid and he's definitely calmer in the box and all that. So I'm not going to say I won't switch back and forth, and I'd be happy either way. But I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the guys that take control of the steer's head and set the run up for their partners, the heelers are going to have a fun week. They can just start getting their confidence and crawling around there and heeling some, finishing the run.
Will you start on Turbo?
I am going to start on Turbo just because.
Kind of got the most mileage out of him this summer.
My dad always said, dance with the one who brung you in. I rode Rooster as much as I could this year. He had an injury early on. Rooster now
looked great leading up.
Yeah, man, Rooster's got life after rodeo. So him being a stud and all we're doing, he's at High Point this year, and he's getting some age on him. So I'm trying to back off some of the miles and stuff. But
yeah, well, he's proved himself. So.
He has, and I'm definitely comfortable knowing that I got him in my back pocket if I need him. Yeah. All right, so this has been fun. We're getting ready for round 1. Man, I really hope that when I come back here later this week that I've been able to do, me and my partner have been able to do everything that we just talked about. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks, Miles. Thanks, Matt, Team Roping Journal and roping.com. Thank you guys too.